All right, number one. Start with some Virginia love for my man John.
Yeah.
Virginia bans so-called gay and trans panic defense in murder and manslaughter trials from democracynow.org. So Virginia has become the first state in the South to ban individuals charged with killing LGBTQ people from using the so-called gay and trans panic as a defense for lesser charges or reduced sentence. The legal defense has allowed individuals accused of murder or manslaughter to argue that the victim's gender, identity, or sexual orientation was what provoked them to commit the crime. The legislation was introduced by Virginia House Delegate Danica Roem, who in 2017 became the first transgender lawmaker elected to a state legislature. Virginia making moves. I like that.
Hey, Virginia's doing stints. I know we on the news right now with those Windsor cops not being great, but I think once they took over as a Democratic legislation, they moving stuff, and they. I mean, we're not all the way where they want to be, but for what Virginia used to be 10 years ago to what Virginia is today, we're making progress.
Nice.
I agree, it's good news, but at the same time, can we talk about? I mean, now let's not get into it, but why does a law like this even need to exist? How is this not already common sense? How is this not already protected by a currently existing law or amendment or whatever? It's crazy.
It's America.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because I saw a tweet from National Treasure Michael Harriet of a video that Vermont State Senator Jeanette White, she called these so freaking ironic. Anyway, Vermont State Senator Jeanette White called this type of laws a slippery slope because then nice white women won't be able to shoot men in motorcycle jackets because they might be part of the Hells Angels. I wish I was joking, but that's what she said.
Wow.
Number two, first GMO mosquitoes to be released in the Florida Keys. Yes, let them be the guinea pigs. By Taylor White at undark.com. So mosquitoes, we have a love-hate relationship. They love me and I hate them. I must have sweet blood, so I don't know what to do. But anyway, so hey, if they're gonna get rid of mosquitoes, I'm for it. So this company called Oxitec, they created mosquitoes that have a self-limiting gene that will be passed along by males that will, in theory, make the females infertile. So that sounds great, cool. But the EPA approved Oxitec's mosquitoes to be released this spring, even though the company has not released full details of their previous experiments in places like the Cayman Islands and Brazil, including full details of whether the mosquitoes actually do curb disease transmission. So does it work? I don't know. So on top of that, they didn't do a full environmental review. So we don't know how much it will cost for full deployment, if the trial even works. Most people in the area said, hell no, when it came to approval, and et cetera, et cetera. Too many issues. So as much as I hate mosquitoes, I don't want, even Florida, I don't want them to be the guinea pigs. Sorry.
Yeah. I know for me, I'm allergic to bees. So I had a couple bees around my house and I got rid of them. And, they have the issues with the bees nowadays that, we want to preserve the bees. And I know they're dying because of, radio frequency or whatever they're coming up with. But I like living. So if you're a bee around my house, you got to go.
I'm canceling you, Case. That's terrible.
5G is taking them down too.
Calzone.
Nah, man, we need the bees, yo. They produce our food for us.
I love the bees. I love the bees. I love the bees, just not around me.
Next story: how Congress screwed over minor league baseball players, explained by Whitney McIntosh of SB Nation. So baseball has gotten a lot of praise for moving the All-Star game out of Georgia over the passing of racist voter suppression laws, but they are far from angels in the outfield. So I was reading something about them, recently, and I ran across this whole story. So in 2016, there was a federal class action lawsuit alleging that the MLB and its teams owe players for off-season trainings and overtime pay for extra hours during the season. So the MLB's response was to lobby for the Save America's Pastime Act, which rewrote federal law to accept baseball players from the federal minimum wage and rules around overtime pay. So the law didn't pass in 2016, but in 2018, it was quietly added to page 1,967 of a 2,232-page omnibus spending bill that needed to pass to keep the government open. The within billionaires who own baseball teams care about fairness Yeah, I think again, they just, being overt racist just hurts their pockets. So that's the only reason for their kindness right now.
And who was what party was the hold the house during that time?
Yeah, and this was a bipartisan bill also. It was introduced by Republican and Democrat. So when they get together, it's usually to screw us somehow. So bipartisanship is not always a good thing. It rarely is. So number 4, court rules grocery stores inaccessible website isn't an ADA violations by Timothy B. Lee, R. State. So in 2019, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers some Western states, ruled that Domino's violate the Americans with Disabilities Act because it made their website and their app unusable by screen readers for the blind. In a recent case, the 11th Circuit Court, which curiously covers Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, came to the opposite conclusion when the Winn-Dixie grocery store chain was sued over accessibility to its website by blind customers. So this circuit split makes this case more likely to be heard by the Supreme Court if the plaintiff decides to appeal, because we have two different courts of appeals disagreeing. They might be concerned about precedents. So, and this is very important since the internet is fast becoming integral to our daily lives. And if companies keep making online features or benefits that are only, accessible through their website or the app, then the company, they must comply with the same laws that apply to brick and mortar stores. And the retired representative, Tony Coelho, who introduced the ADA law in 1989, he agrees it should apply.
Yeah, first I read this and I was like, I don't know if this is really that big of a deal. He could still go in the store and get his pharmacy, prescriptions filled and all that. But the fact that Monsanto, I'm reading the chat here. The fact that Winn-Dixie was involved in this, back in 2017, and they still never did anything about it up until now. It's not like, they're surprised by this. You had all the time in the world to just make your website screen readable. Is that really that big of a deal to fight, the Supreme Court about it? Just make it screen readable. That's it. Done.
It's crazy, man. Especially when you have companies that are doing features that are online only. So already that's some kind of discrimination right there. They can't access it. New Mexico ends qualified immunity by Jordan Williams at thehill.com. So Democratic Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed the New Mexico Civil Rights Act, which ends the use of qualified immunity as a defense for depriving a person of their civil rights. And this not only applies to police officers like in New York and Colorado, it applies to all public bodies.
Do we know of like cases against other public officials that are not cops that really benefit from qualified immunity?
I can't think of the top of my head, but I could imagine if it was a case where there's some kind of, let's say, a company pays off a politician to pass a law that will let them dump sewage in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm not against it. I was just curious. It's not something I've heard of before. I'm totally for what they're doing though.
Yeah. So, last rapid or not so rapid story: America may be close to hitting a vaccine wall by Caitlin Owens at Axios. So, an analysis released by Sorjo Ventures concluded that the supply-demand shift for the vaccine will happen earlier than expected, as early as the end of April, and before the nation reaches the 70 to 90% threshold for achieving herd immunity. This means that everyone who wants the vaccine will get it, but there are too many people who don't want it. And the most vaccine reluctant Americans are white Republicans. And of course, red states in the South lead the way in their reluctance. Lagging behind is Alabama, who has administered the smallest amount of vaccines, only 61.4% of its doses. And although there is a partisan divide in urban and suburban areas, the redder the area, the more they don't want the vaccine. A separate survey of rural Americans released by KFF found that among rural residents who said they definitely won't get vaccinated, almost 3/4 were Republicans or Republican leaning, and 41% were white evangelical Christians. So I don't know what God said about helping others or whatever, but I'm sure this is.
I don't know if we're ever going to get rid of this virus with the way this rollout is going.